Okay, welcome. It says that I am live. I hope that you can see me instead of my sewing machine. I'm going to move my microphone. It's making my shirt fall down. But welcome. Today is May 25th. It is Memorial Day weekend in the United States, and I'm so happy that you have joined us. Today we're going to work on our pillow of the month for June, but it also makes a very awesome little quilt. If you love sailing or you love the ocean or you love boats in general, let me show you what we're going to be working on. So let me share my desktop really quick with you, and let me show you what I've got here. So I'm going to share my desktop, and if you go to www.jellyrollclub.com and you open the June handout, this is what it looks like. We're going to be making this little pillow on the end, which is a little 14 by 20. You have two pillow options. You can either create a sailboat or an applique garden. Either way, it's up to you. Maybe you can make both of them if you feel like it. But you're just going to need some orange and navy. Those are opposites on the color wheel, so they always make things pop. You can add a little bit of brown to your boat if you want to do that, or you can add another blue. So that's up to you. But we're going to be making this pillow today, and I'm going to show you how quick it is to make this pillow. If you have not said hello to each other, please say hello, and we're going to go ahead and get started. You want to take a peek. We're going to be looking at pieces that are this is an 8.5 inch finished square. We start with the water, which is 8.5 inches across, and then we move our way up. So let me kind of show you what we're working with. All right, I'm going to show you my hands. Can you see my hands? So for the ocean bottom, I'm going to be using this little piece of batik that looks kind of like the ocean to me. It looks like waves anyway. So this is the little piece I'm using for the ocean. I'm going to be using an 8.5 inch piece for the boat bottom, the bottom of the boat. I've also prepared a few of these ahead of time, but I'm going to be using, these are leftover squares. They're 3.5 inches. If you have 3.5 inch squares, you can make half square triangles that are like this using the traditional method. So we're going to be doing that. And then you're going to also need 4.5 inch pieces for the sides for the sky. And so you're going to need a couple of pieces that are 4.5 inches like this for the sky. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to start at the bottom. And you're going to take one of these pieces of ocean that's 2.5 inches by 8.5 inches and make sure that they're the same. And you're going to build, oops, forgot these, your little boat bottom. So we're going to use easy corners for the boat bottom. And you're going to have two angles that are opposites. And remember what I said before we were working with solids. They have a smooth side and a rough side. Put the rough side to the outside and the smooth side down. So solids do have a direction. And we're going to draw lines 1/4 inch apart going each way. And so I'm just going to get a little ruler and I'm going to draw those. I'm going to just line this up. My ruler has a 45-degree angle, so I always just kind of line that up. And if my square is true, then I will just be able to draw that line. Just like that. And I'm going to sew directly on that line. But since this is going to be folded this way, I want to sew just to the outside of this line. So instead of on that side, I'm going to be sewing on this side. And I'm going to put a little X to remind me. You can also use like a friction pen if you want to. But X marks the spot. Since I am going to be trimming this off, I want to sew just to the left of that line. And the same thing will happen over here. This is the side that I'm cutting off. So I want to make sure that I am lining this up and I'm going to sew on the correct line. Just going to draw my line just like this, opposite directions. Can you guys see that? I'm going to lower my ruler and here you go. And why do I do that? Because when you draw a line and then you sew directly on top, you're losing a tiny bit of fabric in that fold. And so it'll make your easy corners a little bit short. If you've ever done that, that's one of the reasons why. And then I just pin this to hold it in place because I don't want that to wiggle around on me. And I'm going to go sew this boat bottom first. So let me head over to the sewing machine and let me see where we are. Here we are. I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to sew, like I said, just to the right of that, or basically on the side that I'm going to cut off. And then the same is true of the opposite side. I'm going to sew to the outside of that because I'm going to cut that off and I don't want those corner pieces to be short. All right. Now, to starch or not to starch, that's always the question. For this particular project, starching is not urgent or necessary, but if you love starching, then you go ahead and you do that. All right, so let's move these pieces out of the way and let's get rolling here. So I have these two pieces that I have pulled out. And what I'm going to do right now is, because they're a little bit puckery and I used white thread so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and flatten that. Before I do any cutting, I'm just going to flatten that and set that seam. So this is the angle that I want. And I'm going to pull this downward just like that. And if I did it correctly, that should lay nicely downward, and that one does. And I'm going to flip that one downward. And I'm just going to press that down. And I have my boat bottom. Then I can take my applique scissors if I'm happy with that, and I'm just going to cut the excess right off. So that with the little X marks the spot, it's gone. And you can see because I used my friction pen, the line is also gone. So you're going to cut the excess, leave about 1/4 of an inch seam. And this is your boat bottom. You're going to match this up right here. And this is your 8.5 inch strip, and you're just going to sew right across. When it's like this, I just literally press them one on top of the other, and then I sew. You don't even need to pin. They usually stay together. If you want to pin, you can. All right, everybody, I see a bunch more people are joining us. Say hello to each other. And then I'm going to go sew that over at the machine. All right. So here we go. Make sure you're sewing on the correct side of the boat, which is the bottom of the boat. And I'm going to sew that down. Just tickle it with your fingers. And those should line up nicely. Let's see what that looks like. Sometimes your pieces can get skewed, but let's look at that. That looks pretty good, and we're going to press towards the water to reduce the bulk. And that looks pretty good. I'm off by 1 millimeter, but I'm going to just trim that off later. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and I have these pieces right here. This is 3.5 inches. If I want to make a 2.5 inch half square triangle, then I need to make it bigger by 1 inch. So if I want to make 2.5 inch half square triangles, I need to make sure that these squares, when I draw a diagonal line, are 1 inch bigger. And so I'm going to lay this down. This is the pretty side. I'm going to lay it like this. And then I'm going to draw a line across there. I'm going to go make myself 2 half square triangles. So this is a 3.5 inch square. I got these out of my scrap bin. This is a great scrap bin project because just like this. I'm going to make it even bigger. It doesn't matter because I'm going to be squaring this up. So I have that piece out of my scrap bin, and it doesn't even have to be perfect. And now I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on either side of that. Just going to go down this side and up the other, and then I'm going to cut it in the middle. And I will end up with 2 half square triangles. This is just the traditional way. So just like this. Up one side, pull that, swing it around. Down the other side. That is one of the fastest ways to make just a handful of half square triangles. If you don't have a ton to make, if you just have a few, then you can do it that way. And I always just kind of trim it with my scissors because I don't want to go bloops with my rotary cutter and accidentally cut those incorrectly. And so now that I have these are going to be a little bit bigger than what I need. I need 2.5 inch square half square triangles. And I'm just going to press these. Each sailboat requires 4 half square triangles. And then these just need to be trimmed to 2.5 inches square. I do have a little tiny 2.5 inch square, but you don't need that. So if you have one of those little tiny 2.5 inch squares, those are lovely, but you don't need that. You can use a regular ruler. I just line that up on the diagonal. And I'm going to trim 2 sides and then the other 2 sides. I like to trim it this way because it ensures that my line on my half square triangles is exactly from 1/4 to 1/4 on the diagonal. And that matters when you start matching these things up, because if this is off center, then your whole project is going to look weird. And so you're just going to do that 8 times. Again, you're going to line this up. I love these creative grid rulers because they really do grip the fabric, and they just do a good job staying in place. I've used a lot of rulers over the years, and these tend to be my favorite. And if you line it up so that this 45-degree angle is facing you, it just makes it easier to cut. And off they go, and you should have a bunch of these little perfect 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch squares, and you just press them all down and you start lining them up. Now, you're going to need a total of 4 of these, and I have a few of these hanging around. I'll make sure I have trimmed them. So that looks the same. That looks the same. All right, so I'm going to put my sails, these are the little sails to my sailboat. I'm going to put them like this, and I'm going to sew them into little pairs. So you want all the little boat sails to go the same direction, just like this. And you're going to need a 4.5 inch square for this side and a 4.5 inch square for the opposite side. So this is going to be the top of your boat. So you have the bottom of your block like this. You have 4 little pieces and this. So we're going to join these together, and then we're going to add these to there, and then we're going to sew the entire unit to the bottom. So this block is made in 2 sections, right? So I'm just going to come over here, and I'm going to sew these 1/4 inch on each side, and I'm going to sew them vertically because that will enable me to flatten my seams, and it'll look nicer that way. Okay, so I'm going to go to the machine and sew these 2, and I'll be right back. This is a super fast project. It's a great little scrappy project. So if you have a lot of odds and ends, little 2.5 inch strips in your sewing room, this makes a great little scrappy project because you can make every little boat a different color. And that's the beauty of this little project, is it uses such small pieces that it makes a great little scrappy quilt. All right. Yes, this is super quick. Like I said, look at this, how fast these go. Just like this. I'm going to put one going upward like this, and then one going downward like this. And that'll ensure that I can connect to those. Now, I have a 1/4 inch right here, and a lot of times when people are sewing half square triangles, they get confused. They see this 1/4 inch right there and this 1/4 inch right there, and they think they've done something wrong. You have not done anything wrong. Those are your seam allowances. So you put these together, one seam going down, one seam going up, and you're going to put these together like this. And right there, you're going to nest those two seams, and you're going to put a pin in the center. Now, when you sew these, there's a little X marks the spot. So if you ever sew and there's a crosshairs, you're going to want to sew just to the right of that. And that should measure a scant 1/4 inch right now. And a lot of people tend to not pay attention to that. But if you sew across here and you're on just to the right of that intersection, you're not going to lose any of your points. And my 1/4 inch is very accurate because you can see how precise these are. You notice both of these units are exactly the same size. And that's another telltale sign if your 1/4 inch is off, your units won't be the same. All right, let's sew this one up. Look at how quick this block is going. If you want to make a twin size quilt of this, you need to make 16 sailboats. And 16 sailboats will give you a twin size quilt. If you want to make it a little bit bigger, then you can add longer. You can add 20. So if you're making it for somebody that's going off to college for those extra long twin beds, then you may want 20 with some sashing. But that's it. Let's look at this. Ta-da! I did not eat those points. And so I'm going to go this way. And I did not lose my point. See how my point is nice and sharp there? And now I'm going to press it. And if you look from the back, I have a seam going one way and then a seam going the other way. So these are opposite seams. Now I can just lay this on top. And I'm going to lay this on top, and I'm going to sew both of those. And a lot of times I will just pin it like this in the middle. And I'll get sewing on my sewing machine, sew one direction and then sew the other. And so now I'm just going to sew down this side and down this side before I put the entire thing together. Super easy. All right, how many of you are going to make this little sailboat? And who are you going to make it for? Are you going to make a pillow? Every one of these block of the month blocks that I am sharing would also make a great one block wonder. So if you want to make yourself a quilt with just a single block in a variety of scrappy fabrics, these are the blocks for you. All right. Hopefully I didn't chop off a little point there. I'll find out when I open that. But if I did, Jack the Ripper, the seam rippers are my handy little friend. He's always around in case I need him. All right. A wall hanging would be pretty in a bathroom if somebody likes to do like an ocean themed bathroom. And I did not chop off that point. That always makes me happy when I see that. No choppity chopped points. Set that seam. Set that seam. I would rather have a scant seam and be a little bit longer in this top section and then trim it off than to chop off those points. All right. Now we match the bottom. So now I have my little sailboat. And if my seams are accurate, then these should match. And look at that. I haven't sewn it together yet, but that is looking like a very accurate set of seams. That tells me that I'm going to be happy. And then I'm just going to pin these over here. A lot of times I will pin the seams so they don't flip around on me. I don't like flippity seams. And then I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch on this last seam, and I'm going to make 2 blocks just like this. Yes, these would be perfect for patriotic colors. So if you have your country's flag and you want to do these in patriotic colors, these would be perfect. If you can find fabric that looks like wood, you can even make a little wooden boat instead of a little metal boat, or even aluminum, kind of a mossy green sailboat. It's up to you. A bright white sailboat and a deep blue ocean. This would be pretty in monochromatic, different shades of the same color. You wanted to do like all different shades of blue or different shades of red, different shades of orange. These would be great in a lot of different colorways. All right, so let's see if this little block turned out the way we want it. So now let's look at pressing. If you notice, this naturally wants to go that way because of all the seams. So I'm going to let it go the direction it wants to, which is to the dark side, and that's what I want anyway. So that's a good direction for it to go. I will not press my seams open if I can avoid it, because over time, open seams tend to be weak seams. And when you quilt, especially if you quilt near the ditch, then it can cause problems. So I always tend to press to one side. And I like that seam. It's looking really flat. And that block is finished. It measures 8.5 inches. And I love how this little block turned out. You're going to make 2 of these blocks, and you're going to sash them with 1.5 inch sashing. In this case, I have a bright blue. And then when you finish, this will end up being just like that. That's a little tiny 1 inch sashing, and then you will put your orange sashing next. So for me, I picked the same orange as the sailboat, and I will put orange sashing this way to complete my pillow. And so I will have this blue on this side, followed by that pretty orange sashing, and I will make 2 of these blocks, finish out my pillow. I'm going to put them side by side, little sails going the opposite direction. This one's going to be sailing to the left, and this one's going to be sailing to the right. And I think this is going to look super adorable, and I like the little ocean waves inside this block. Does anybody have any questions about this particular block that we're doing? Yeah, a lot of quilters will teach you to press the seams open just to get the blocks flat, but my blocks are really flat without pressing them open. I just use a woolly mat, and I use a really hot iron, and I don't need to do anything other than allow the seams to go where they go, and that ensures that my quilt is going to last a long time through a lot of washings. Okay, so let's look at the next item on here. So I'm going to show you my desktop. Down here at the bottom, what I have under the pillow of the month is several other things, and this is an applique pillow. So what I'm going to do for that particular pillow, because it's a lot more involved, let me just share my hands with you. I'm going to show you my 2 cameras. It's a lot more involved. Looks like this. Is I'm going to make a separate video because this is part of the same handout. So this is what I just showed you, how to make this little guy, this little block here. But the second option you have is a garden block. And how this works is one of these little plants goes on the right, and then the wheelbarrow goes on the left with a little snail inside it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do a second video with just the little snail inside the wheelbarrow, and the little plant. And so what I will do is, for those of you guys who want to see me do this, is I will do a second video and I'll record it this week and then post it on the channel. But this is the little June gardener. So some of you guys like sailboats and other people like applique, but this is going to be the applique pillow, and it's going to be the same size as this one, except you're going to have a wheelbarrow in this one and you're going to have a little potted plant on this side, okay? And so if this is what you guys want to see, let me know, give me a thumbs up, and what I will do is I will record a video this week and post it on the channel making the little snail and the potted plant and the wheelbarrow. So let me know if that's what you want me to do, and I will do that. In the meantime, I want you to enjoy your long holiday weekend. I want you to get out there, finish your UFOs. I've been working on some painting because I'm testing out some colors. I love oranges, blues, and purples together. So I'm working on a couple of quilt samples that you guys are going to see. And I think it's going to be a really fun summer. I've got 4 projects coming. If you haven't seen those, let me just share my desktop really quick with you guys. So let me just share what I've got coming down the pike. Here you go. If you go to the Facebook page, some of you don't have Facebook, and I understand that. But if you go to the Facebook page, I posted some things that are coming up. Hi, Jenny Doan. Let me show you what I have going on the Jelly Roll Club. I have posted this right here. So we have this project coming up. We have several things that are happening. You want to see the Quilty calendar? Today was the June pillow of the month. We have the final Fruit of the Spirit that we're going to be finishing up. And then on June 8th, I'm doing Crossroads, which is that quilt that I designed that you saw earlier. And I'm going to start a new series called Krabby Patty on June 15th. So for those of you who are super excited about what we've got going on, that's what we have happening. So June 1st, June 8th, and June 15th, we've got live streams. And I'm going to do some supplemental videos in between before I announce a brand new series that's going to be happening. And I will share a sneak peek. So I went to this thing. It was like the super ginormous flea market at the fairgrounds, and I found a piece of fabric. Ta-da! And look at that gorgeous fabric. That's going to be the border, and it's also my inspiration for an upcoming series. You guys are going to like it. I promise you. If you loved the gnome quilt, you're going to love this one too, because I'm still addicted to gnomes. So I've got a lot of stuff coming. We're going to be doing applique and some scrappy stuff. So hang in there with me, and please give it a thumbs up, share the channel with your friends, and I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, and I hope you get to spend some time with your family and remember what the holiday is all about. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Bye-bye, everybody.